Hello everyone and welcome to the Sweeney Show, Business and Law podcast. I'm David Sweeney and joining me here today is Michael Mulcahy. Michael, you're very welcome.
Thank you, David.
So Michael, I'm going to take a deep breath here and I'm just going to relay the current projects you're involved in. Business Cork, High Magazine, the Cork Business Awards, Cork Style Awards, the Little Island Business Association, Cork Civic Trust, Artisan Ireland and the Irish Consular. Are you the busiest man in Cork at the moment?
Not at all. There's plenty of people much more busy than I am. I think with any project that anybody's involved in today, and certainly for me, I'm involved in quite a lot of different projects, it's about time management and it's also about a good team. And if you've got a good team around you, that team is really the group who deliver everything.
But I suppose as well, you're in Cork, is it 25, 30
years?
Yeah, and is Business Cork, that's a business magazine, it's published monthly.
Yeah, Business Cork is 30 years old this year. It started out 30 years ago. It started out as a magazine and it continued over the last 28 years as a printed magazine. But in seeing the changes in the media industry and in seeing how the trends were developing into digital platforms, but also seeing during the recessionary years how many businesses in the media sector were lost, just like lots of other businesses, we saw that our traditional model was no longer sustainable. Advertising was no longer sustainable. The values in advertising were no longer enough.
So what, just for those who may not know, what is the Business Cork model? What was that?
Business Cork today is very much a digital platform model where we engage with the 45,000 businesses that exist in Cork City and County. Within those 45,000 businesses, there's 265,000 employees. Business Cork is made available to them through a digital platform at businesscork.ie. Every Wednesday there's an e-zine that goes out to every business and every person who wants to subscribe to it. That's all free. It's important from our point of view that the new digital model is a subscription-free model. A lot of people will say that the media industry today needs to revolve around a subscription-paid model. I would disagree with that. Certainly at national level, where the trend is that retail sales for newspapers and magazines are down over 60%, over the last 7 years. That's very true even in our industry for Business Cork and some of the other magazines that I used to publish. We could not sustain the level of losses that would be carried forward from the lack of people buying the traditional product. That was because recessionary years necessitated people cutting back, not being able to afford papers, not seeing the value in them. And of course, those traditional media then taking on the digital model where content was available online virtually free of charge. There is a balance between something being free of charge and costing money to deliver. So it's not true to say that every media can offer their product on a subscription free model. We can, and that's the way we've built our model.
And then you obviously are, that's a business entity, so then you charge businesses to advertise in the Business Cork,
yes,
but the end user gets the actual product for free.
Correct, and we have a number of different advertising models, but we also have events. So within my overall company, which is Number One Media Group, that would cover a range of products in the business sector where we have Business Cork for the Cork market. We have Business Ireland, which consists of Business Dublin, Business Galway, Business Kerry, all the 32 counties on the island of Ireland operating under businessisland.ie. The model there is that we will have a local business news site for every one of the 32 counties on the island of Ireland. High has traditionally started out as a magazine, has developed into a digital platform.
So
today.
High is kind of more fashion style?
Fashion and social and style. And it's all about people. And I suppose, again, any of the products that I'm involved in and have been involved in for 30 years in the media sector, they revolve around one thing: people and businesses. And when you have people and businesses that you're looking to work with and that you're looking to tell stories about, because our traditional model of printing magazines has changed very much to this digital model, and the digital model today is all about storytelling. It's about working with people to tell their stories. I think, as we all know, nobody can tell a story better than the person that the story is about. Sometimes, though, that person needs somebody to be able to relay that story, and sometimes, more often than not, they need an entity that's capable of taking that story out to the mass market. Really, all that we do is carry stories, develop stories, but we place them, and we strategically place them from a digital and from a social media perspective out to an audience that is interested in reading about what the story would be, but also interested in seeing who the people behind those entities are. And as you know, there's some phenomenally interesting stories, some great business people, some great people across all walks of life, and sometimes they never get the real opportunity to tell their stories. Sometimes when you can afford to have a PR firm that will tell your story for you, and PR firms are outstanding in what they do, but over 97% of businesses do not work with PR firms. That means that 97% of businesses in this country have to tell their own stories. If there isn't somebody that's going to work with them to tell it in the way that it needs to be told, i.e. the way that people want to hear it
and deliver
or
it
read
in the
about
modern
it,
way they're going to
correct,
receive it.
It won't deliver for them what it needs to deliver. So our job is to do all of that. And in the midst of that, we also do things for clients that revolve around events. So for example, this is the 14th year of the Cork Business Awards. Remy Martin, which would be one of the leading drink brands in the world, would be our sponsor for a number of years.
But just even on the actually, I might talk about the events in a moment. Just on the, when did you really, or did the penny drop that the print media wasn't way to go? And that must have been a huge, brave decision to actually transfer from an actual physical newspaper that you were doing for back then, to go to 25 years, to then go, oh, hang on a second, we need to review everything, take a step back, what's happening in the market. That must have been a huge, brave decision.
Well, it's certainly very clear to me, because I think anybody who has lived through a recession, you know, our parents lived through previous recessions, we lived through the recession of 2007 to 2013 approximately. In Q3 of 2007, we saw a significant fall off in our advertising revenue. We saw a significant decline in our retail sales of all our magazines. 2008, it was catastrophic. We were down over 85%. That meant the business was on a downward spiral at such a degree that we were not able to control it. Now, one of the things we were quite lucky about was that we hadn't expanded too much in the so-called good years. But we saw that over the next number of years, and the projections were that the recession could last for up to 10 years.
So it was happening everywhere, property everywhere, and then the ripples have been felt across all industries.
All our customers were people that I had been dealing with for 20 plus years. Over 75% of our customers went out of business in the recessionary years. The 25% that remained in business and who are still in business, they remained customers of ours, but their spend was down.
They just cut the cloth to suit the measure.
Some of them had to cut it fully.
Yeah, but I remember that, like back then, like even I qualified as a property solicitor in 2007, 2008. It was crazy because the law society put so much effort into kind of graduating solicitors. Like traditionally, back in the 50s and 60s, there might have been only 30 or 40 solicitors qualified a year. That kind of crept up to 150. The year I qualified, nearly 800 solicitors were actually graduated out of the Law Society. And then they just fell off the edge of a cliff. My story is I was made redundant in 2008 and we set up this practice here soon after. And then the nucleus was kind of property and then the economy, but it just was felt everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the great things, if we can say that came out of the last recession was that so many of us who were employed, who lost jobs, saw the opportunity for self-employment. Now, self-employment isn't for everybody, and self-employment is quite a lonely road for a lot of people to be on, which is why connections and networking and friendships within business or within any walk of life.
Where do you think you get your entrepreneurial spirit or your...
Well,
assessed for it?
I was very lucky when I was going to secondary school, and I'm originally from Newcastle West down in Limerick, in County Limerick, and I was involved in my school. They put me forward for what was then the Aer Lingus Young Scientist exhibition in 1983, which is a lifetime ago, and I did a project which was a theoretical project on Ireland's first mushroom plantation. Mushroom plantations in Ireland were unheard of. So I set up a business theoretically, created the business, developed all aspects of building the business into Ireland's largest mushroom plantation, and exhibited it at the then Aer Lingus Young Scientist exhibition, and it won the major award of the year. That for me was really the conduit of seeing that my route in wanting to A, work for myself, B, get involved in a number of different projects where I felt that I would have the skills or the capabilities of being able to build something and deliver it and sell it. And throughout my 30 years in business, I've had quite a number of projects, and I think it's only fair to say for any of us in business, sometimes people don't say this, but certainly for me, and I'm sure for many others, we've been very lucky, and sometimes you build a business and you do very well out of it. Sometimes you build a business and you don't do very well out of it, and sometimes you build a business and you lose your shirt on it. And that's the truth of anybody who is in business. If we don't tell it like that, I'm not sure we're telling the truth. For me, I've had some great successes, and we've also had some, quite poor returns.
But do you think the lessons you learned in the failures or the less successful projects stood you better than the successes?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the US line on failure, which really has transferred to Ireland now, because I think everything that happens in the US is generally about 15 to 20 years behind when it happens here. A failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. And for anything that we don't succeed with, we learn a lesson from it and we can do it better next time. And I think the true definition of an entrepreneur is really somebody who tries again, and tries for as long as is necessary to get what they want and achieve it. Now again, you can't keep trying something that's dead at all levels, and there is a balance between it. But I think for me it was very clear that young scientist experience, I went on to sell that theoretical project to an Irish company that's now the world's largest mushroom distributor and grower. And back then, over 30 years ago, it certainly was a great learning curve. It's a multi-billion euro business today. It certainly wasn't that when I sold it. But then again, it's like anything in a deal.
Yeah.
There has to be something in the deal for everybody. The deal won't work, the deal won't close unless there's something in it for everybody. I was very happy with what I did, but it set me up for wanting to do things for myself.
So part of your, I suppose, from anyone from the outside looking in, one of the big successes over the last few years is the events you've been running, the Business Cork Business Awards, and then the High Magazine Fashion Awards. Like is it between 500 and 600 people attend these? Yeah,
we would have generally up to 600 people attending those gala dinner award ceremonies each year. And for the last number of years, we've had the Cointreau High Style Awards, the Remy Martin Cork Business Awards. The Business Awards are now in their 14th year. The Style Awards are in their 7th year. Each year, one of the limiting factors here in Cork is that we never have the capacity to be able to cater for all of the people who want to attend those events. Last year, for example, with the High Style Awards, we had to turn away just over 900 people who wanted to buy tickets. But because the venue is not suitable for anything more than the number that we can run it in, there is opportunity, of course, in Cork for bigger venues, for bigger events, and for people who want to attend them. It's important from our point of view that we're based in Cork. We could take that event and some of the other events to Dublin, because the High Style Awards is a national event, and highstyle.ie is all about the 32 counties having a style guide for Kerry or Longford or Dublin or any county. So having the event in Cork is a very important part of what I want to do in leaving in Cork some of the business that we feel should be left in the area.
I know there's plans the last few years for a convention centre in Cork. What are your views on, I suppose, the delays, we'll call it, on that process at the moment in Cork City?
Again, there has been a lot of debate on why delays like that happen with projects like that. Any project of the size and complexity that the Cork Convention Centre is going to be, and I would be very certain that at some point we will have a convention centre in Cork. Whether it actually happens on the particular site in South Main Street that is earmarked now for it, the jury is still out on that. I believe everybody has contributed as much as is humanly possible to get that deal over the line.
Are the things holding it up, are they financial, are they political?
Well, there has been a lot of different things holding it up. The last thing that's holding it up now is as to whether the final amount of money, the 9 million euros that the government sanctioned on top of the existing monies that were sanctioned. And the problem at the moment is that the government have given that money, and that money, they have said, has to be treated as a loan from to Cork City Council. So in other words, Cork City Council have to take responsibility for repaying that. The view of Cork City Council in all of the discussions was that at all times those discussions centred around that money being a grant. And the difference between a grant and a loan is one you repay and one you don't repay. So if Cork City Council have to take on another liability of 9 million plus interest, then the management of the centre, the model, is going to have to change. I'm not quite sure that it's workable for Cork City Council to take on another 9 million. If that is a problem, it's down to the Taoiseach and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Simon Coveney, to sort this out. This is his legacy project, and it's important for his political career that this project is delivered for Cork. Everybody agrees that. He agrees that. He's taken a very personal approach to it, and I think the work that he has done for this particular project and many other projects in Cork is a phenomenal benefit. However,
it's clear the city needs it.
It's very clear the city needs it, but it's also very clear that the region needs it. And we are the second largest city on the island of Ireland. Outside of the capital city, which we're all very proud of, the capital of Ireland South is Cork. There hasn't been enough emphasis, in my view, placed on the fact that there's an alternative to Dublin and that there's an alternative growth plan for Cork. There is a lot that has taken place, for example, with the extension of the boundary, and we will, over the next 10 years, grow the population, which is currently 540,000 people for Cork City and County, to a population of 1.1 million. That's a full doubling of the population. But the infrastructure isn't there to meet that. And there has to be huge work done.
That's probably, we won't get into the housing issue and the rental market in Cork, but you're quite the advocate for Cork City, and you even seem to be a stronger advocate for Cork Business. And where your office is located in Little Island, you've established a Little Island Business Association the last couple of years.
Yes, back, I think, again, recessionary years. We moved to a new building in Little Island, perhaps not at the best time for taking on new buildings, but we did. And what we found was that in the fall off in my media business and in the clients that we had, I saw at the time there was about 680 businesses in Little Island all around us. I didn't know any of them. They didn't know me.
Large businesses, small, international, national,
everything
mixture.
From the largest, which was Pepsi, Pfizer, Janssen, Lilly, down to the small indigenous business like Kiri's, who had moved into a new motor mall, MSL Cork, Lihan Environmental, loads of businesses.
So those may not know the geography of it, like Little Island is just maybe 5 to 10 kilometres outside the city.
7 kilometres from Cork city centre. It's on the periphery of Cork. It is now the largest business district in Ireland South, not just in Cork, in Ireland South. We have over 1,050 businesses based in Little Island. Every day there are 17,950 people who work, visit and live in Little Island. There's 2,000 people that are residents, and that's set. There's 1,000 people at the moment. It's set to grow to 2,000 over the next 3 years. There's 500 acres of land
I think
for
that's
rezoning.
evident. I remember we had a discussion previously over around Christmas, the amount of online shopping that was being done and gifts and the pandemonium it created in Little Island, where there were so much courier deliveries into the centre.
Correct. And again, you know, Little Island, from when we started the Business Association as a not-for-profit model by bringing together the businesses and saying to them, look, at the time there were 680, now there's over 1,000. We said, if we were all to do a little bit of business with each other, the recession would not be as severe for us. So we formed Little Island Business Association with the model that we were all going to look at trying to do business with each other. And that's the model that has developed out of it. When you look and see, perhaps, in what we're talking about now, the online retailing model, and I've been involved in online retailing in a company called BigWhiteRabbit.com, which is Ireland's largest Amazon retailer.
What's it called?
BigWhiteRabbit.com.
We'll put the details up on screen here, yeah.
Great. And we sell a range of products to 200 countries globally from Little Island. And our base is in Little Island. We carry over 2,000 product lines, all in stock, and sell to a global audience. So I know the value of online retailing. I also know the damage that online retailing has done.
What's it doing to the high street?
To traditional retailing. However, it's not damage if the traditional retailer also adopts a policy on new retail. I would see traditional retail as bricks and mortar. New retail to me is online retailing. If a traditional retailer, and I accept not every traditional retailer can have an online model, but the vast majority of them can. If the traditional retailer adopts an approach and embraces online retailing, there can actually be two streams of income. A couple of years ago, when the Christmas sales were on, I was in Brown Thomas one day, and the then general manager, I was chatting to her on the floor, and we were talking about how Christmas had been, and she said it had been quite good, and how were the sales doing, and she said they're quite good, but she said it's our fifth shop that's really doing the most business. And I didn't want to appear ignorant, because I thought fifth shop, I didn't know they had a fifth shop. So eventually my curiosity got the better of me, and I had to say, where is the fifth shop? Oh, she said, we consider our online shop as our fifth shop. Now, that for me was the very start of realizing that the traditional retailer adopting an online approach could marry the two together. And I think we're still missing that in traditional retail. However, in Cork, there is a new momentum for retailing in Cork. And with all that's going on in Cork City, all the developments that are taking place between 5,000 and 10,000 new employees coming into this city over the next 5 to 10 years, all the new buildings, 400 acres of land for redevelopment in Cork Docklands. It's going to transform the vibrancy of Cork City. But retail is the key part of that. And retail to me is not just shops, it's also hospitality. If you sell something, you're a retailer. And I don't care whether it's food or products or a service.
Like that old saying, we're all in sales.
We're all in sales. So Cork has enormous opportunity for the next 20 years. Set out in the government plan of 2040 that for the next 20 years, Cork will be the fastest growing city in Ireland. That's a huge opportunity for us.
Potential there, isn't there?
Enormous potential. Just look at the Docklands. Go back to housing for a moment, because housing is critical to the success of any business model. The old Cork Docklands development strategy of over 12 years ago, which needs to be updated, which needs to be developed, and which needs central funding to deliver those Docklands, that had provision for 25,000 new homes. The new Docklands, taking in Tivoli with the Port of Cork and all the plants that are there, right down to the mouth of Cork Harbour, in my view, should have capability for up to 45,000 new homes. And that's going to be a new type of living and workspace, and a combination of living and working together.
Quite look like the Docklands in Dublin, wasn't it? And the Quays there, the rejuvenation that's had over the last 10 years,
absolutely,
both commercially and residentially with apartments.
Correct. And if you look at the success of Dublin city centre, we have to ask ourselves, why has Dublin thrived in the last 10 to 15 years, and why has Cork been relatively stagnant? And the simple answer is, look at Dublin Docklands. Look at 1991, when the International Financial Services Centre was established by Dermot Desmond with the support of the then Taoiseach Charlie Haughey. And the growth in the Docklands has been a mix of offices. The convention centre is there, the theatres are there, and thousands of homes, be they apartments or other type of facilities, and hotels. Our Cork Docklands, with over 400 acres of land, has even greater potential than the Dublin Docklands. But what the Dublin Docklands has done for Dublin city centre is it revitalised the city centre, because all the people who came to work and live in the Docklands,
And
they
the domino
started to
effect
shop.
was a new terminal in Dublin Airport,
Correct.
accessibility for tourism, all these kind of things grew out of that. Yeah.
So rather than we looking at the negatives of what has not been done in Cork, we are, and we all should look at the positives of what can be done. Everything that Dublin, as our capital city, has seen over the last 15 or so years, that's all ready to happen in Cork. But there needs to be a momentum in Cork that doesn't slow these things down. And if you look at the convention centre that we were talking about, that has been slowed down to a degree that should not happen. The red tape surrounding these things is just not acceptable.
You could think of that may be a trigger event to actually Cork to really mushroom. And so, Michael, throughout your business career, like you spoke earlier about having a network and building up relationships, and in the last couple of years, I suppose there's a real power couple emerging in Cork business, Dan and Linda Kiley, and their success through Voxpro, and I suppose through your business connections with them, you've now set up, is it the Cork City Trust, Civic Trust?
Yes, I've known Dan and Linda, like many people in Cork, for many, many years, since they started out in 1996 in the city centre and built their global company.
That's a real, that story. I think everybody relates to that story because they came from such small beginnings, and their stories are quite open about.
Absolutely.
We spoke earlier about their own people's
Correct.
failures,
Correct.
and where they went right to the line of mortgaging their houses and taking a risk and a gamble on themselves.
Yeah, and when you look at a couple like Dan and Linda, and you look at what they've supported in Cork since they started out in 1996, and they've been very open, as you've said, about the ups and downs of business. But one thing that has been very clear to me in all the years that I've known them, they supported so many different projects, so many different people, even in times perhaps when they didn't have the level of funds to do that. But they did it.
But even just for those who may not know, they sold their company in the last few years.
They sold their company to a Canadian company called TELUS International, which is one of the world's leading business process outsourcing call centre companies in the world. And I think for Voxpro today, it has 5,000 employees across the globe and growing with the TELUS network.
Brilliant that they call it Campus One is out there in Man. It's superb Cork support.
Correct. And I think the commitment to Cork by Voxpro and by its parent company now, TELUS, is something that was part and parcel of the deal that Dan and Linda did with the new owners. It was important that Cork was central to the future plans of TELUS. We need much more of that from people who sell their companies to ensure that what they've built here is retained here and grown from here, rather than it being taken out and taken to other nations where there's perhaps a
cheaper labour or whatever it might be.
So that's important. So in all the years that I've known Dan and Linda, they've supported many different projects that I've been involved in. I went to them with a new project called Cork Civic Life. It's part of Cork Civic Trust. Cork Civic Trust has been around for over 30 years. I've been its chairman for 5 years, and Cork Civic Trust was always about the preservation and protection of the building stock of Cork City and County, preserving and protecting some amazing buildings. And over the years, Cork Civic Trust would have developed and managed what's known as the Doll's House on Pope's Quay. And that's a Queen Anne building dating back to 1730. One of the only type of buildings in this country that's been fully restored, and it's now managed by Cork City Council. So Cork Civic Trust was looking for a new project. So we decided, following a period of research, that there was over 3,000 voluntary social, civic and not-for-profit organisations in Cork City and County doing amazing work in our communities. They could be everything from the likes of St Vincent de Paul to Cork Penny Dinners to Bishopstown Community Association to Allahy's Senior Citizen Club. There was no limit, but there's over 3,000 of them. They do phenomenal work for our communities. They generally rely on support from the business community, and the one thing that they're not the best at is getting their message out there. So we decided that there was a digital platform that could be created to tell their stories. And this goes back again really to the knowledge that I have over the 30 years of my career. It is about media. It is about disseminating information.
Storytelling.
And storytelling. And it is about telling the story by the people who can tell it best. So we have a new model going in place for Cork Civic Life, which is this new digital portal that's going to be supporting these 3,000 organisations. Dan and Linda Kiley are the lifetime patrons. They have made a significant donation to this project that will continue for certainly 25 plus years. It will build for Cork City and Cork County a model to take the information from these community organisations to a local and global audience. If you look today, there are 10 million people across the globe in 200 countries who claim to be members of the Cork diaspora. There's 105 million of people across the globe who claim to be part of the Irish diaspora, but in Cork it's 10 million. These are 10 million people we're not engaging with. These are 10 million people that have some ancestral link.
I thought most Cork people didn't leave Cork.
All the good Cork people stay in Cork, and all the great Cork people go and come back.
Come back, yeah.
What we want is these people all over the world who have a link to Cork. I don't really care whether it's an emotional link, an ancestral link, a business link. They have a link. When you reach out to these people and you ask them to support something, certainly over my 30 years, I have very rarely found those people wanting in doing something if they can do it and if it suits them and if it works for them. These 3,000 organisations that we have in the city and the county, they have a phenomenal story to tell. They're doing great work. They need support in the form of money, and they need support in the form of recognition. We have a project at the moment that we're working on, which is, without going into the detail of it, in West Cork. There's an elderly gentleman who is significantly wealthy in the United States. His great-great-grandmother came from this local area. He wants to give something back, and he has a policy like we have of giving while living. And this is an approach that, there's very little point in we passing from this life and being the richest people in the graveyard. I think we could be the richest people in life by helping others, and giving while living is a philosophy that a lot of people could certainly do much more of. This gentleman wants to fund a project in West Cork, and the only condition he has is that it will be dedicated to his great-great-grandmother in her name, in her memory, because she came from that area.
So he and she now leaves a legacy there.
Correct. So there's much more of that can be done. So the Cork Civic Life project, with the help of Dan and Linda Kiley, is going to deliver much more for that. We have a big event coming up next year, which will be an annual event called the Pride of Cork Awards. Pride of Cork Awards is all about recognising the unsung heroes of Cork, recognising people who do great things in the community, and recognising volunteers. We have some great awards programs in Cork, some that I run and some that many other people run. But it is about ensuring that the people who rarely get recognition should get it.
But you're quite the advocate, so not only for championing causes such as non-profits and volunteerism, but you've really established yourself as championing the woman and females in society and in business. And I think you've created, is it Inspiring?
Yes, Inspiring.ie is a new connections agency for women in business from every one of the 32 counties on the island of Ireland. Going back to the first year when I came to Cork in 1989, and the very first event that I did as part of what was Business Cork then was an event for Cork's leading businesswomen. And we brought about 100 businesswomen in 1989 to a lunch. And we just acknowledged them for what they were doing and said thank you for the efforts that you're making in your business and for Cork. They got an award, they got a certificate, but they got 99 other connections.
That must have been quite even revolutionary back then in the 80s, before like family law and all that kind of stuff came in. The place of the woman in society back then was a lot different than it is now.
Yeah, it certainly was, and I think times have changed dramatically. The female entrepreneur today is a very different person to what the female entrepreneur was back 30 years ago. And
even the female in business itself, it happened last year that the female to ratio of solicitors in Ireland has gone over 50% now.
Yeah, and you know, great to see, because I think, again, when you look at the, and I may come into for a little bit of criticism on this point, but I think when you look today at how women manage the life that they're involved in, very, very often you have a woman who has a job in the home. Very often you have a woman who has a job with her family. And very often that same woman has a career. So if you look at that particular woman who has 3 jobs, and the recognition that that particular woman does or does not get for the 3 jobs that she does, I'm not quite sure that we acknowledge that here or in any part of the world to the level that we should acknowledge it. I would have a great belief that the untapped resource that women have in the ability that they have to be able to manage and juggle and develop all sorts of things in life is something that could really lend itself to politics, to business, and to other areas. Unfortunately, we haven't seen enough women in politics. We are seeing a greater number of women in business. And I think when you look at the ability that women have in what we're doing in inspiring.ie, it's about connecting women with like-minded women. It's about ensuring that there is an awards program called the Inspiring Awards 2019, which takes place in October, sponsored by Graham Norton and his new wine range. And again, I like to look at Cork links for events that we do, so there's a synergy there. But it is about recognizing people for the talents that they have. And if, you know, all that we do in my business is about recognizing that and saying thank you to a certain group of people for what they do, I think that's an absolute necessity in life, that somebody does that and somebody feels that they've been acknowledged and that they're respected for what they do.
Do you think, I know you is there a career in politics for Michael Mulcahy? I know you are in the Irish Consular. If you want to maybe give us some information on your current roles or that you've done through the years in government type roles.
One of the businesses that I run as well is Diplomat Ireland, which is the national diplomatic news site at diplomat.ie. We also run the Consular Association. I've been Honorary Consul of Poland, appointed by the Polish and Irish governments in 2010. And a lot of my colleagues who are honorary consuls for different countries around the world, our job is really to ensure that if there is foreign direct investment opportunities for Ireland, for the countries that we represent, that we work with the appropriate channels for that. The key to that is representing the citizens. In Cork, there are 32,000 members of the Polish community, very strong group. Throughout the country, there's over 150,000. But it doesn't matter whether it's Poland or Hungary or Spain or what country. The model that we have in Diplomat Ireland is about, again, telling the story, the great story that Ireland has to tell, and encouraging people to look at Ireland and hopefully look at Cork as a place for investment, to live, for business, for whatever the case would be. Certainly, I think the political role for anybody in life, we will have hopefully a directly elected mayor in Cork within a number of years. We will have a plebiscite in May with the local elections where the people of Cork will be able to vote and say, do you want...
When you say the local mayor elected, a functioning mayor that has decision-making capacities?
Yes, it hasn't been set out clearly enough by government as of yet as to what the exact role of a directly elected mayor and what the
Michael
functions would be.
Mulcahy running for mayor?
I think there are some excellent people in Cork City and County who would make an excellent directly elected mayor. And I think some people have phenomenal skills that they could take on that role.
Answer the question there. That's a brilliant politician's response. I'm not going to put you on it.
We have some great people, and some people have expressed an interest in it so far, and they have put their names out into the public domain. And again, I think once we see what the exact terms of the role are going to be, it's important that the role would have executive functions. At the moment, our Lord Mayor and the Mayor of the county are essentially ceremonial offices. They're elected members of either Cork City Council.
12-month term?
A 12-month
Yeah.
term. It's too short. I believe that a directly elected mayor should have a 5-year term. Minimum of 3 years, but ideally a 5-year term. That allows a plan be put in place. The term of a council is 5 years. So therefore, the term of a mayor should be 5 years. Changing a mayor every year doesn't do justice to the area that it's representing. And we've had some excellent Lord Mayors and some excellent mayors of the county, but I think a new role with executive functions would certainly move Cork City forward and other cities around the country in a way that they haven't moved so far.
Michael, thank you so much for your time today. It's a phenomenally interesting story. It's not over here just yet for yourself in business in Cork. If you were to give any aspiring entrepreneurs, business people starting out today, what advice would you give them?
I think one of the things many of us who work for ourselves have to possibly realise is that we're potentially unemployable. When you work for yourself for so long, you become very set in your ways. And now I think it's a very good thing that we're unemployable, because it means that we're solely dependent on what we do ourselves to make ourselves employable. There's a lot of different advice out there today for people who want to go into business or take on a career that isn't necessarily the career that might be set out for them in schools. I think it's very important that our education system adapts to the changing patterns of this nation. And the changing patterns are, we should be teaching entrepreneurship in schools. We should be teaching business studies across a wide range of commerce studies that was there in the old days when civics was almost part of the curriculum. But I think the best advice that I could give to anybody who is considering a career, regardless of what the career is, talk to the people that are out there at the moment. Talk to the people who are in business. Talk to the people who are professionals at what they do. Ask them for 10 minutes of their time. Ask them what it's like to do the job that you do, to do the job that I do, and ask them would they recommend it. I've seen over the years so many people in careers, when other people come to them and say, I'm considering a career in this, what would you suggest? Oh, don't go into that now, They don't like the career that they're in. If some of us are not happy in the career that we've chosen, and we're doing a job that we really are doing for the sake of the money and the living standards, there's no enjoyment.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Find something you're passionate about, transfer your passion into business,
about passion.
into learn a living.
Absolutely. It's about passion and it's about dedication. But if you're also just involved in a career and working in a business with no give back to civic society, you really have to have, in my view, 30% of your time that is dedicated to giving something back, and 70% of your time that's dedicated to progressing your career. Marry the two of those together, it comes back to the giving while living. It's not all about money. Give some time, give some expertise. And I think when we do that, we actually perhaps leave the place that we are in a slightly better position than it was when we came into it. And that's what really, to me, that's what life's about. Leave it in a better place than it was, give something back, and help others along the route. It can't be all about take. Life is give and take. And I think if we perhaps have a good balance, then I think we actually enjoy what we do. And that's key.
Michael, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you,
and we
David.
really wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.